Opposing Viewpoints series, Chapter 2, How does money laundering occur and what can stop it? Chapter preface. Unlike corruption, money laundering is a modern crime implicitly tied in some way to the expansion of the global financial system. Because money is now entirely abstract, meaning it has no inherent value aside from what the market assigns to it, tracing criminal behavior is often a matter of tracing where ill-gotten funds travel and what they buy. Consequently, criminals now generally try to launder that money into finances that appear to be, at least on paper, the result of perfectly legal transactions. Practically speaking, this can involve anything from using fictional shell businesses to reporting earnings that are non-existent, to buying and selling real estate in a foreign country. Doing this is a way for criminals to remove some of the primary evidence that a crime took place at all. If the money from the crime has disappeared, it becomes harder to prove it was ever there in the first place. Money laundering makes a crime out of complicity. While a bank may not be directly involved in the violent crimes of a drug cartel, for example, bankers can be complicit by looking the other way in order to take a cut of the money those crimes generate. Consequently, most efforts by government regulators to curtail money laundering focuses on banks. Do they know where their customers' cash flows are coming from? Government regulators would like to make sure they do, but some argue that this is easier said than done. But money isn't only laundered through banks. The luxury marketplace is especially susceptible to being used by criminals for laundering. More expensive goods can be bought in smaller quantities, quickly converting ill-gotten gains into objects that can be later resold. These kinds of transactions are especially tricky to regulate because of the limited nature of the marketplace for expensive things. Only so many people can afford these things, and nobody likes to lose a sale. In this chapter, these viewpoints will both look at how the architecture of money laundering operates in some of the kinds of businesses, legal and illegal, that often get caught up in the tangled web of international crime. Viewpoint 1, How does money laundering work? By Gagrin Josh, starting with a quote, if investigating agencies or regulatory bodies want to check financial records, false documents are shown to confuse them. In this viewpoint, the author lays out the very basics to how money laundering schemes are conducted around the world. Unlike bribery, the general idea seems to only date to the past century. In a way, this is because money laundering is something of a reactive crime, a response to the creation of an international banking and monitoring system that has made possible the close tracking of how money moves around the world. For that reason as well, it's a crime that has quickly become increasingly popular, often directly in tune with the push of globalization. Gagrin Josh is an online test preparation platform based in India. As you read, consider the following questions. 1. According to this viewpoint, what are the origins of money laundering? 2. What are the 3 main steps in laundering money? And 3. How do governments try to fight money laundering? Structuring, layering, and integration. Yeah, those are the steps involved in the process of money laundering. But let's begin from the top. Money laundering refers to converting illegal earned money into legitimate money. The government does not get any tax on that money because there is no accounting of the black money. So money laundering is a way to hide the illegally acquired money. The term money laundering is said to have originated from the mafia boss Al Capone. Capone had set up laundromats across the city as a front to disguise the original source of money, which was obtained from the illegal sale of liquor during the Prohibition era in the U.S. In India, money laundering is popularly known as Hawala transactions. True. Meaning of money laundering. Money laundering refers to converting illegally earned money into legitimate money, so money laundering is a way to hide the illegally acquired money. In the method of money laundering, money is invested in such a way that even the investigating agencies can't trace the main source of wealth. The person who manipulates this money is called launderer. So the black money invested into capital markets or other ventures returns back to the real money holder as the legitimate money. placement. Oh, wait a minute. Placement, layering, and structuring, it's not. Oh, I'm sorry. Structuring isn't said to be one of the steps involved in the process of money laundering. It's placement, layering, and integration. So probably structuring occurs in placement. So the first step in the process is the investment of black money in the market. The launderer deposits the illegal money through different agents and banks in the form of cash by having an informal or formal agreement. Layering, in this process, the launderer hides his real income by making foul play. The launderer deposits money to investment instruments such as bonds, stocks, and traveler's checks, or in their bank accounts abroad. This account is often opened in banks of those countries which do not reveal the details of their account holders. So, in this process, the ownership and source of money is disguised. And integration, the final stage in which the laundered property is reintroduced into the legitimate economy or returned back into the financial world as legal money. So you buy a Rolls Royce, you sell the Rolls Royce, the money from the sale is legitimate. Layering is actually just the confusing part, I think. The launderer hides his real income in making deposits into investment accounts, bonds, stocks, traveler's checks, bank accounts abroad. The account is often opened in banks of those countries which do not reveal the details of their account holders to disguise it. But there's like these smurfing techniques where you can have like 20 people all deposit into the same account, or all be recipients from one account that then all move their money to another account. It's just a web of transactions that make it confusing and hard to follow. Other methods of money laundering: buying a large house, shop, or mall, but showing less value on paper, while the actual market value of the purchased properties is much higher, is another method of money laundering. This is done so that launderers can reduce their tax burden. Thus, black money is collected through tax evasion. In another way, money laundering takes place when the launderer deposits his black money in foreign banks. These foreign banks do not share a customer account information with any country. For example, banks in Switzerland do not share account information where large numbers of Indians have deposited their black money. So that first part that they're talking about is buying a $700,000 house for $500,000 of like a legitimate source and $200,000 in cash, and calling the transaction $500,000, and then the $200,000 is like returned. No, it's not. But I guess the equity returns it to the new owner. Prevention of Money Laundering Act in 2002 in India. The initial money laundering law in India was enacted in 2002, but it has been amended 5 times. 05, 09, 2012, 2015, and 2019. The Prevention of Money Laundering Act, it's the PMLA of 2002, aimed at combating money laundering in India with 3 main objectives. 1, to prevent and control money laundering. 2, to confiscate and seize the property obtained from laundered money. And 3, to deal with any other issue connected with money laundering in India. The PMLA Amendment Act 2012 has put concealment of funds, acquisition of possessions, use of proceeds of crimes, and possession of money on a criminal list. It is worth mentioning here that RBI, SEBI, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, IRDA, have been brought out under the purview of PMLA 2002. Hence, the provisions of this act shall apply to all financial institutions, banks, mutual funds, insurance companies, and their financial intermediaries. Latest amendments in Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002, which is the year of the terror attack on the United States World Trade Centers in Capitol. So that's the same time that America enacted legislation as well, the U.S. Patriot Act. So the latest amendment to PMLA Act 2002 came into effect in 2019 as part of the Finance Act 2019. The primary amendment is the change in the definition of proceeds of crime under the PMLA Act 2002. It came into effect from 1st August 2019. Section 3 of the PMLA Act 2002 contains provisions related to the offense of money laundering. To broaden the scope, an explanation was added to Section 3 as a part of the amendment and was put into immediate effect. The explanation is as follows. A person shall be guilty of the offense of money laundering if such person is found to have directly or indirectly attempted to indulge or knowingly assisted or knowingly is a party or is actually involved in one or more of the following processes or activities connected with proceeds of crime, namely concealment or possession or acquisition or use, or projecting as untainted property or claiming as untainted property in any manner whatsoever. 2. The process or activity connected with proceeds of crime is directly or indirectly enjoying the proceeds of crime by its concealment or possession or acquisition of or use of projecting it as untainted property or claiming it as untainted property in any manner whatsoever. On the basis of this explanation, it can be concluded that the process of money laundering is quite complex and manipulative, but the government must increase the process of digital transaction to curb the menace of corruption in the country. End of Viewpoint 1.